have a very personal touch to everything. So I want to, before I work with anyone, like I want to know who you are and what you do and what you're passionate about and why you're doing this and like, why does this project matter to you? And I think just that extra little bit makes the process a lot better.
Hello and welcome back to the Edit Undo podcast. We have got a banger of a guest today. Fishcat Zombie. I think the first thing I have to say is that name. I remember the first time Chaz told me about you. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go visit Fish. And then I'm asking myself, like, what kind of a guy is named Fish? And then he's like, oh no, that's not all there is to his name. It's Fishcat Zombie. And I was like, okay, this is somebody who I need to get to know a little bit better. And I guess the rest is history. But Fish, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, let's kick it off with the name, please.
Yes.
I think Alfie is very much in the loop. Yeah.
Okay, so with Fishcat Zombie sort of evolved because like I was doing a lot of like water sports and stuff in high school.
From a cat?
My friend
to a fish?
And like and then I think Fish was the first one. Like first it was just Fish. And then when I got to like film school, like people were trying to call me like Catfish and like a whole bunch of other things, which like I didn't like any of them. But then Fishcat sounded like dope. Like I thought Fishcat sounded dope. So Fishcat. So then it was Fishcat for a while, and then And then I almost died in second year, and like that was just like a car crash like situation.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but my homies, don't stress, like it's not that deep. But my homies my homies like started making jokes about it afterwards. So then it became like Fishcat Zombie because like I came back.
That's crazy.
And then we just always like messed around with my name until Fishcat Zombie just sort of like stuck. Yeah, and then I started using it on Instagram, and then it became like a thing, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. No, fair enough. And so the government, what did the government call you? Because I'm sure they don't call you Fishcat Zombie.
So my like government name is Sambai Kanjere. Yeah.
Sambai Kanjere, yeah. You know, every now and then I forget that because I'm so used to calling you Fish.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think like anyone outside of my family really calls me Sambai anymore, except my one homie Jason, because we've been friends since we were like 11. So he like predates Fishcat altogether. But yeah, everyone else pretty much like calls me Fish now. So yeah.
Nice. All right. So now that we've got the inside scoop, the backstory of how you got that awesome name, let's dive into why we're really here. You know, I think you're one of the people who, you know, I've known you for long enough to kind of see your role and what you do transform. And I think there are not very many people who pick up new things with as much intention and dedication as I've seen you do. So let's maybe roll the clock back a little bit to that time when you first did start getting this second nickname from your film colleagues. Tell us a little bit about how you developed the skill, where you started off, and how you eventually got to where you are right now.
Oh, yeah. So I started at AFDA, so I went to like film school and did like the whole film school thing. When I got there, I wanted to do directing. I didn't really want to like do camera work and stuff. I didn't actually know what cinematography even was. I thought we were going to watch movies. Like cinematography to me sounded like we were gonna sit and
just
just
Netflix and
watch a
chill.
movie.
4 years.
Yeah. So I was like,
Sounds like a
yeah,
vibe.
dude, this is how you become like a reviewer or something,
Enroll
surely.
me.
Like, yeah. And then we got to class and I realized like, oh damn, like this is a lot of work, dude. Like we're gonna be working with cameras and lighting and creating scenes. But I really loved it, like to the point where it ended up being like my main elective, and that's what like I graduated for. Um, and then I was also really lucky that in first year, I met some guys who were older than me. They were in third year. And they had their own little like company where they were like shooting and doing like adverts and stuff like that. And they let me just help them and assist for free, like from first year. So while I was studying, I was also just like
Nice.
really nailing camera work and like getting to know set and
Yeah.
like how set runs. Um, and just figuring out like where my space on set is going to be and what I want to do. And then that's what I did until I finished school. And then when I finished, I'd already gotten a lot of like work experience on top of like having my degree now. So I went into lecturing actually. My mentor went to Cape Town. So while he was down there, I sort of like filled in for him and I started lecturing. Um, and that was
What
really
did you lecture
interesting.
out of interest sake?
I was actually lecturing cinematography. So
Okay.
like, yeah. So by that time I'd gotten my honors. So I'd been doing it for like 4 to 5 years. And yeah, he just had a lot of faith that I could do it. And I realized like when you're teaching, you have to know something to such a high degree because you have to be able to like answer every question, face every scenario. Kids have all kinds of scenarios that they have to face, and you're the one who has to like help them figure that out, you know. And luckily, he did prepare me for that. So I went back and like learned with a deeper intention the second time. Um, and then, yeah, and then I lectured for a year and I loved it. And I thought that it was really great. But I also wanted to make more stuff and like spend more time on set because I was sort of doing half and half while I was teaching. So after the first year, I I quit lecturing. I had one job to do, which was like, I think like a 20-day shoot. And then I also had a shoot with Nike. So I was like, yo, if I can nail these two shoots, I will probably be fine. So I'm just gonna quit my job. And like
I'm just gonna quit my job.
I'm just gonna quit my job
I
and
love
like
that.
go for it, dude. So that's what I did. Yeah, I quit and like everyone was super supportive. Like all the staff members that I'd worked with were just like sending me friends in the industry and like helping me network. So I
Sure.
spent a lot of time like networking and growing. And then, yeah, so I started like creating and shooting and traveling a lot as well, which was like really fun. And that was sort of like my career until COVID. And then when COVID hit, like the two things that make me money, like I can't do, like I can't shoot because I can't leave the house and then I can't travel. So when that happened, I started learning.
So
Yeah, sorry.
I want to stop you before you dive into that because you know this is one of sort of the turning points in the journey, and you've kind of skipped over a couple of things that maybe it might be valuable to linger on a little bit.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the first thing that you spoke a little bit about was making the decision to sort of just take the leap. I think it's easy when you're on this side of the fence to say I just did it and it turned out fine, but it obviously doesn't actually feel like that when you're making the decision. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about what your experience was, sort of deciding that you wanted to take that route, and also maybe a little bit more about how you felt about leaving lecturing? Was it like an easy decision for you to make? Like, were you over lecturing at that point, or was it sort of like a something where you were somewhat torn?
Yo, I was actually really torn because I really love lecturing. And I still like help a lot of students and like young filmmakers like get into filmmaking and learning what they need to. So it wasn't something that I necessarily like wanted to do. It's more I felt like I needed to do it. Like I needed to create more and go out and like shoot my own thing. And I wanted to, so I think about 6 months before I left was when I realized like I'm going to leave and I need to figure out how to leave. And then over the next 6 months, I essentially prepared to leave, which is like both financially, emotionally, like you start like telling people that like, yo, from next year, I'm going to be available during the week to work, like creating a show reel. Um, I think the most important things were like saving up money. So I saved up, like while I was working, I saved up quite a bit of money. So when I left, I had about 6 to 8 months of like living expenses, like saved up so
That's
that
proper.
like I like even if
That's
I
amazing.
didn't have anything, I could still like, like get by without like stressing too much. Cause I don't work well under pressure, dude. So like, so I did like prepare a lot. Um, and then mentally, I think freelancing is something I've always had like a bit in, but that was the first time that I was going to be relying entirely on like freelancing.
No.
So I knew that I had to mentally get ready for that as well, because like my dad's a freelancer. So luckily I've been able to like see how he works and operates, and like
Yeah.
not having a consistent income, not knowing, especially in the beginning, where the money is going to come from, where the clients are going to come
No.
from. There's a whole lot of skills outside of like your practical job skills that you need as well. So like,
That you need to learn.
like
Yeah.
how to run a business, how to do like taxes and stuff,
Budgeting.
budgeting, like,
And so would you say those are things that you learn from like sort of watching your folks kind of go through that, or is that stuff that you kind of just learned by trial and error?
I think it was multiple things at once. Like it was a whole lot of different things, but when I knew I was leaving and I started really thinking about it, that's when I started actually intaking everything that I'd seen over the years. So there's like my dad, who's like a freelancer. There's there was also, so Ganja Beats. That's how like I met Chaz. Well, that's how Chaz and I started working outside of school. So when I was hanging out with Ganja Beats, they're also very open about like how things are moving. So that was
Yeah.
my first real insight
Yeah.
into the business side of creativity. And Himmel was
Yeah.
always very open to answer my questions. So I would say like, how do you price a beat, dude? Like you're sitting there thinking about
It's a real
something.
challenge.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. Like how do you come up with a price for a creative piece? Because Himmel wasn't only making beats, like he's also organizing and directing adverts and like moving in a lot of different graphic design spaces. Like there's a lot of different creative spaces that he's moving in. So he was great for learning like how to price, how to find vendors for the things you can't do yourself. Like he was taking a lot of the knowledge I already had and putting it into a creative context. And then, like I said, I was working with those two guys, Cornet and Albert. So, like, seeing them also shoot and how they like operate that while doing other things, that also gave me a lot. My mom has always been like really frugal and attentive with how she deals with money. So, things like drawing up a spreadsheet. I mean, she has a spreadsheet that's been running since before I was born, I'm sure. And like, that's always how she's managed her finances. So, she's always like drilled a lot of things
Excel
into
Pro.
me. And I didn't always listen to those things, but then I got to a point where I was like, yeah, I need to like think about all this information I have and like, what am I going to use? What am I not going to use? How do I like contextualize that information into something I can use? So it was a lot of experience, like just looking at the experience I'd had so far and how I could use that information and what I learned. Because you don't always think about these things like on the job. Like stuff's moving so quick and you're trying to do so many things, you don't really process it. So it was really important for me to take the time and really process what I'd learned and think about like what are the things that I can foresee outside of A, B, and C that I can prepare for before I like go freelance. And then, and then I was ready. Like, when I said I was done, I took December for like a break. And then January, I had a show reel, a portfolio. I had like my first website up. I created like a second email and I had like a routine for every day. So I was like, every day I'm going to wake up, I'm going to be behind the computer from this time. I'm going to send out this amount of emails. I'm going to call this amount of people.
My type of person.
I'm going to, I'm going to tick off all these things on a list every day. And I think in really sitting in that routine and then allowing it to change, like as things go wrong, just giving myself the room. And again, because I was like financially ready, I could give myself that room without being harsh. Giving myself that room to learn and then adjust that rhythm until I had something that worked. And then next thing I knew, I had a business in front of me. Yeah.
I'm quite curious, you kind of had these little processes in place for yourself, almost like a safety net set up for success, taking this leap to, start freelancing. Is that something you still do today? Is that kind of really?
Yeah. Okay. I'm someone who's very...
The parachute fund.
Yeah, I'm very routine orientated. And I'm also prepare for the worst. Like I'm someone who's always like prepare for the worst. If the best happens, that is so sick. But if the worst happens, I don't even want to flinch. Like I want to be ready for the worst. And I find that creating a routine and processes for everything that you do gives me that armor to attack like any sort of situation because I always have something to fall back on, Like if a client is being tricky and they're saying like, oh, I can't pay this way, I can only pay that way, then I'm like, it doesn't work then, bro. Like that's the only way I work. So it's also being firm in my process that I think was like really important. But to this day, I mean, it's changed a lot over time. But I still have a daily routine which I follow. I still approach every project with a process, and I think that it's very important to have a process. I don't think there's any right or wrong one, but you need to know what your process is and stick to it. Yeah.
I think it's quite refreshing to show for many people because I think a lot of people have the perception that any creative discipline or any creative practice is just very flexible, very fluid, and there's not like a process you follow. It's not very systemized, which is actually not as true. It can be very systemized to kind of get into that creative flow, actually. It's not just,
And it's interesting. It's funny how, especially, like, I find a lot of creative people struggle against the routine for a long time.
Very much, yeah.
But then when they eventually build their routine, that's when they perform the best.
Yeah.
I even found that with myself. Like, I've been the most effective creatively when I kind of build my walking routine in well. And the time I sleep and wake up is relatively the same, whether that's early or late. But if I can get those right, and then my exercise routine is right, and I also put away time for creativity, that time for creativity is such high quality that it makes up for the fact that I have to do all kinds of other strange things to make sure my routine works.
Yeah. It's really important. Like it's, I just feel like when I'm at work or when I'm working, that's like being in the in the dojo or in the gym. And, you know, when you walk into that place, you need to show the work that you're doing a certain level of respect. So you can't come in there like tired and unfocused or with like too many things on your mind. I used to do judo when I was a kid. And something I learned very quickly was like, if you step onto the mat unfocused, like you're going to get hurt, dude. You know? So I've had that approach with like everything, you know, like if we're working, like we're working, and that's what I want to focus on. If I'm chilling, like I'm chilling, and that's all I want to think about, you know. And if you have that routine, then everything has its time where it has your attention. So it just helps you also stay healthy and stay motivated.
As a creative, you know, creativity or cultivating like problem solving in a creative space can be quite intimidating because it's like approaching a blank page. And I think that creatives put that expectation on themselves way too often. And I think, like Alfie mentioned, then later on, you start to learn that there is this little recipe or routine to kind of help you get over the barrier, which is that expectation of just creating from nothingness. And it makes me think back to when we spoke to Balekane, the illustration artist. She also herself has this almost like a ritual that she follows when she gets into the zone of working. Her space is curated, the process, the clothes she wears every morning when she wakes up. It's curated like a recipe to help cope with what is this blank page when you step towards it as a creative.
Yeah, that is true. And it's so important. And I think it's one of the signs of maturity for a creative is when they've started to explore in that domain. Because it's essentially like, and it's one of the things I'm kind of going to go on a little bit of a somewhat grim tangent. But like all of the artists, I think, that kind of don't make it past the 27 Club, it's sort of the people that don't learn how to figure that out. They don't learn how to build a lifestyle that supports their creativity rather than essentially the creativity comes at the cost of their lifestyle. So I just think it's one of those things that we really need, especially with the way things are going in the music industry right now. It is just, yeah. Anyway, that's somewhat besides the point. One of the things I want to touch back on a little bit. So I kind of drew you back a little bit, Fish, as you were telling us what you were doing. You know, COVID hits, like your two main sources of you know creating income have suddenly now been frozen. What do we do?
So the first thing is, I was really fortunate that I could be by my parents. So with my parents, I'm not worrying about like rent and all of those things. So I think remember, like at first we thought it was going to be 2 weeks, you know. And I actually the day everything shut down, I was planned to fly to New York. And I was literally like, I had my bags
So
packed
wild.
and everything. And I remember getting a call, and the lady on the phone said, you can either take your flight and come now, but then you might not be able to return.
Yeah, come back.
Or you can get a full refund for like your ticket and then like obviously come back when you're ready. And I was like 2 weeks. I was supposed to be gone for 2.5 weeks anyway. Like I should go, but then I just decided, you know what, let me actually like stay with my family and like just make sure everything's cool. I can always go later. So I canceled. And then, the pandemic happened. Like it was just unwavering. So the first thing I did was try to figure out how I could get a permit or something to still shoot. Because I'd heard like rumors about that being possible, but only for like certain productions and like companies of certain sizes, and you had to follow all these protocols, or it had to be like certain types of shoots. So that I tried to do, and that didn't really work. I got a permit to shoot for 2 days where I was like just documenting Joburg while it was empty. So it was literally just me by myself shooting.
That must have been amazing.
But
That must have been crazy.
yeah, that was nuts. But that didn't really last long. So I was like, okay. Then, then after that, I found out that studios, you can still shoot at studios within curfew if you follow all the procedures. But the reason people weren't shooting were because like, how can you have people 2 meters apart on a set for like a party scene or something? And like, are we really going to put masks into ads? Like, how are we going to do this? So what I started doing was like, while I'm figuring those things out, I'm also learning other skills. So other parts of filmmaking, which don't require me to actually like leave the house. So I've gone onto YouTube and I'm learning editing. Until that point, I'd only really edited for like my YouTube channel. But I sat down like seriously and found like courses and stuff. And I said like, I'm going to get to like a professional level. So I did that for editing. And then for the type of editing I wanted to do, I ended up like doing visual effects anyway. So yeah, I started doing like editing and visual effects and marketing myself on the internet as someone who could get the job done without you having to leave the house, because I'm sure there's a bunch of productions that have now stopped. So I just marketed myself as like the solution to trying to finish productions during COVID. So I just said like, whatever it is, just send it to me and we'll figure out how we can get it across the line. If we need to get stock footage, we'll get stock footage. If we need to just edit it some more and get some voiceovers, we'll do that. We did a lot of stuff where I was like directing remote shoots over Zoom to get like more footage in.
How does that work? How does that
So you
go
just
down?
like,
had an interesting time.
it takes a lot longer because you got to like take a photo and then send me the photo, and I've got to look at it and be like,
Yes.
okay, is this going to work? Directing people, and then just reaching out to your network, finding someone who's a lot closer, and then saying, yo, can you go 2 blocks down to my friend and just set up the camera for them? Or even just leave the camera at the gate and they'll come grab it, and just like, don't let them switch it off. And just like, yeah, just doing like whatever we could.
Crazy.
And then, yeah, so I started doing that, and like some decent money was coming in. And then my mentor gave me a really cool tip where he said like, yo, if you don't want to pay a shitload for tax, because freelancers get taxed like a lot, bro. He says, if you really don't want to get taxed that much, dude, what you can do is start a business and like run all of this out of your business. And then like certain things that you're waiting till after you get taxed to like save up and buy, you can buy like before you get taxed. And then like, there's like a whole bunch of things you can do.
Make it a business expense and stuff.
Yeah, so just getting everything in order. And it was all stuff that like I just had no clue about. So he just like started helping me with that. I started asking my dad what I should do. And then, yeah, through like a lot of different conversations and again, like reaching out to my network, I just got into a space where I felt ready to start a business. So we started Visual Jutsu. And then we started running everything out of there, and then also marketing, not just editing and shooting, but like animation as well. We found a studio that had all their permits and stuff to shoot, and it was a green screen studio. So we also shot Ava's whole album in that studio, like her first tape except for like one music video we shot in an apartment. And then we just structured the concepts and stuff around things that we could do with only her on camera, and then we fill it out later, and things where we could be COVID compliant, but still get stuff done and still get people marketing and creating content. And that was like our thing. I mean, by October that year, I was ready to like move out again, even though we were still in lockdown. So I moved out and I was trying to move things and get my life sorted in like still lockdown. So in a time where I think a lot of people were struggling, we just sort of found a solution to a problem, and that like got the business started. And then we used that, like I started using that methodology with like everything that we do.
Mm-hmm. So like when you started this story off, it sounded very much like this was an isolated journey. You went and worked with other people, you had colleagues, and they kind of supported you as you went to freelance. And now you're speaking about starting a business, and now there's a we.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about who the we is?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was alone and freelancing for a lot of the beginning. And then I had different friends that I would do different jobs with. So like I would go see my friend Riza if like we needed to do like a 2-man cam job, and then I would like always work with him for those. And then I had Riyadh, who was like really into animation and effects. So whenever we had editing stuff, I would go to his house and like work with him. And over time, like, other creatives started like gravitating towards me. And the main people being Riyadh, Riza, and Diane. So,
Fish, why do you think that is? I want to quickly pause. You said something really interesting, people gravitating towards you that you kind of reached out to initially to help you with projects. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're gravitating towards you?
To be honest, I think it's just because I have a very like open and honest way of like going about the process. And I also try not to get into other people's processes. Like, I think that, the way I work with people allows them to do whatever they want to do and work whichever way they want to work. And I'm very adaptive. So I adapt to whatever way they want to work. And I think that I put honesty and quality of the work above like anything else. So no matter which way you work, I think eventually if you just stick to one way of working, eventually people who work in a compatible way sort of like start showing themselves. And if you double down on those relationships, then they can like feel it too. Because it's also like mutually beneficial, They get to keep working the way that they work and do what they do. And I get the help that I need, and we both get to make some money out of it as well. So I think that that's it. And then I also just have a very personal touch to everything. So I want to, before I work with anyone, like I want to know who you are and what you do and what you're passionate about and why you're doing this and like, why does this project matter to you? And I think just that extra little bit makes the process a lot better.
Yeah. I think that last one.
I'm going to come in with a contrarian suggestion as well, because I think one of the things also that draws creative towards a person like you is the fact that you're a creative with structure. There are very many creative people. There are not very many creative people with structure. And I say that because I know I'm not one of them. And so I appreciate it in other creatives. I think when you...
I think you're right, dude.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think you're right because like one of the biggest roles that I have now is like helping the creatives that we work with find structure. So all I say, like, I know creatives all work their different ways. So I'm just like, yo, if you tell me you can finish by this date, I'll sort out what happens in between. You know, I'll make sure the client knows what's going on and that they're happy. I'll keep us on track. Yeah, you just know that by this date we need to be done, you know.
And that's the dream for a creative, you know. You want to have that room to explore, to meander, take a couple of side quests,
Yeah, they
and then
need that
eventually,
space, but
finish.
I think that not a lot of creative freelancers and agencies communicate that to the client. You know, they don't give a client a window into exactly how the creative mind works, and that this is all part of the process to get you that end result that you need.
And is that something you did from the get-go with your first lines?
No, actually not. That's something I learned across the way. I just found that in the early days, there were, like, I'm a very, like, stats and, like, math orientated person. Like, I always write down, like, how many clients did I have this month? How many are coming back? How many were happy? How
Sounds
many
like your mother's
projects
child.
were, yeah. Like, how many projects were, like, successful, and, like,
You also have a spreadsheet.
yeah, I also have a spreadsheet. So after looking at that information, I realized that, like, a lot of clients weren't coming back, and there were more projects than I would like that were ending badly, like just ending with the client not being happy, or it taking too long, or even if everything is on point, the relationship with the client just doesn't seem to be right. And in trying to figure that out, it was just a trial and error of different, like, strategies and different approaches to how we run projects. And then I eventually arrived on, you know, like, yo, I've tried everything. Let me just be honest, dude. Like, let me just, you know, like, let me just sit there and tell them exactly what's going on. So, you know, when something goes wrong, what I was taught in school was, like, if you have an issue, the client doesn't need to know about it. You sort it out behind doors, closed doors, and then you just make sure that
Keep
by
calm.
the due date it's sorted, and you keep them calm.
Yes.
And I took that as, like, law, but that's sort of, well, all rules are, like, really flexible. So that applies to like small things that you know you can sort out. But the moment I don't know for a fact that I can sort this problem out, the first thing I do is say, like, yo, let's have a meeting. Can I call you? Let me tell you exactly what's going on. Like, I had to have a call with the client a few weeks ago where I just had to say, like, yo, the sound that came off set is unusable. We've tried everything we know to fix it, and it's not going to work. And going back to having that relationship and creating a relationship with all the clients, I can then say, I know that, like, these are your goals. And in order to achieve your goals, the best thing to do would be to re-record the sound.
Reshoot.
And there's, like, we can either do ADR, so we go into a studio, we put it on screen and, like, record over, which is, like, possible. We can reshoot the whole thing. And then I just quote all those options, and we send out every single option. And then we say, like, yo, you decide what you want to do. If you don't want to work with us, or if you want to just keep muscling ahead with what we've got, this is the level that we're at now. And then you just show them, like, where the work is at. And I think just being really open about that and being able to speak about that, then we can have a conversation where they can say, okay, look, we can push the date back. We can't afford a full reshoot, but maybe doing this in studio will work. And then I can say, okay, this will definitely work if we do it like this. Let's follow this process. And then we make like a new project timeline just to sort everything out. And that's something that like I used to be very scared to do. And I think that when you're still starting out, it's very scary to tell your clients that you have a problem. But at the end of the day, they just want to succeed. They want their business to do well. You want your business to do well. So fixing the problem helps you and your client.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I was just thinking about something I was also doing today, a project I'm on. But it's exactly what you were saying around keeping the clients a little bit, not in the dark, but kind of the process has started, and kind of only when it comes to the due date, then you kind of show them something. I think a lot of creatives, and me included, and I just witnessed this kind of in myself when you said that, also struggle sharing and articulating while you are in the process. Because being in the middle of the process is a very insecure place.
Yeah.
So for instance, I'm a UX designer, and our head of marketing asked me a favor to make this infographic for the brand side of the business. And firstly, I don't have a Wacom tablet anymore. I haven't illustrated in maybe 7 years. But I was like, cool, I'm up for it. Started on my iPad with my stylus and Illustrator, Procreate, pencil, paper, everything. And I said to him, I'll send him at least some concept by end of this week so we can see if we can start digitizing it. And I was sitting there today, like sketching on my iPad, and I couldn't come to a point where I felt like I could actually share my process, because I felt so uncertain still, because that's what it is, right? It's that the double diamond. While you're still in that space where it's still not quite certain, it's really hard to share. And I think that makes it even more difficult on scale if you think about bigger agencies and companies. If you are expecting to be completely honest to the client, it starts with actually making the individual creatives more confident to articulate and share while they're in the process.
Yeah, no, definitely, Steph. And I think you've touched on something really important. It's that idea of making the creative feel safe to say, I don't know the answer as a possible option without your job being framed. And I think that's the thing that really is the crux of the matter, because Fish, I was just listening to you talk about how when when you're studying they tell you can't share these kinds of things with clients, and when you're starting off it's hard to not believe that. But I see people a decade into their career still doing that, not telling a client about a massive problem. I mean, even where I work right now, I can tell you two different circumstances of things that people are not telling a client that they should be telling a client, simply because they want to try and fix it before the client finds out. And it's like, I understand. And there's an argument to be made that there is a time to not tell a client, and that is when it's unnecessary complexity. If you know you can solve it, and you know you can solve it because you're a specialist, that's not necessarily something your client needs to know about. But if you're not sure, you have to. And one of the reasons, like one of the only things that convinced me that I have to do that is the fact that if you don't do that, your client is paying you to do a broken solution, because it's not working.
Exactly.
And as long as you're not telling them, you're working on something is not working.
And that's
it's
just,
like, how can you justify that?
I mean, it just becomes a waste of everyone's time, because by the end of that project, when they figure out that like your solution doesn't work and they've been paying you to like dig around, it becomes like a big fight, bro. Like people really get upset. So at the end of the day, it only makes sense, but at the same time, you're 100% right. And I think it goes back to processes. If you have a process for attacking a problem where you say, okay, I have a problem, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and if those don't work, I'll go to the client. then at least you know like 90% of the things that are just fluff and you'll figure it out. The client doesn't need to know. A, B, and C will like wash that all away. But a cardinal sin that I can say is like a hard no, there's never an exception to this rule, is one thing that people really hate is when you get to a deadline, like 5 o'clock Friday, and when they're expecting to get work, they get an excuse. Or they get like, they only get the problem when the work is due. Like that is something that, and like, so I've just gotten a new mentality of whatever the problem is, buy as much time as you can. Do not tell these people at number 99 that something is wrong. Like, you know, just get it right. You know, if I spend 2 days doing everything I absolutely can to check if it's fixed, if it's fixable and it doesn't work and we still have 2 days before the deadline, that's 2 days where we could be sorting it out, you know? And that's a much calmer client than the client you're going to talk to on Friday at 5 when your deadline is due, dude.
Yeah.
It's also a calmer person to talk to.
I want to know why Alfie is laughing so much.
So I have an analogy. It's like, imagine you were trying to render something and then there's an error, but it only tells you about the rendering error at number 99. But it happened at like 15.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, what was the rest of that render time if you couldn't finish this to begin? Exactly. What were you doing?
What were you doing, dude?
And the thing with the clients, it's kind of the same thing, because I think a lot of clients will understand if a problem comes up and you tell them when the problem comes up. Because, I mean, they run a business as well. They know problems happen. No project goes according to plan from start to finish. And so when a problem comes up and you say it at the beginning, they're like, okay, this not only is this person competent, but they're also open enough to communicate when there is a problem. So when they're not communicating, I know everything's okay.
Yeah.
And you know, like, I think to the project that, like, you know, you and I have been working on, and that to be the case. Like, you know, I'm somewhat scatterbrained at the moment, and you know, I don't really need to be checking up. I don't really need to be, you know, doing what you might if you don't have that level of understanding with whoever you're working with. And it's sort of just like when that communication is open and upfront, you're not always like wondering, is my service provider trying to get one over?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think with a lot of agencies that is the case, because there are also a lot of agencies that have got very shady business models.
I mean, to give you an example, from this project that we worked on, we had a glitch like a week ago, and I knew the glitch was coming. I knew how to fix the glitch. I knew everything was cool. I just knew I couldn't send the video when I planned to send the video. So I just popped a little message to say, hey, haven't forgotten about you. Just have this problem that I'm redoing. Like, I'm just redoing this shot. Because again, we know like the bigger goals and stuff. And I know that like not handing in this morning isn't going to be catastrophic in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when your mind does wander to like, what is going on with this project, you know exactly what's going on. You never have to. I don't want people to ever wonder, like, I wonder what he's doing. Like, they should be calm to know, like, that I'm working on their projects. Everything is cool. The moment there's a problem, I'll let them know. So if I haven't said anything, like you said, it's because there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get into, like Alfie mentioned, you know, we usually ask guests to maybe elaborate a bit on a piece that they're currently working on.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really nice, because I know jack shit about cinematography or film, for that matter, other than Netflix. So, or actually even probably some of the other stuff that you guys work on. So it would be nice to either talk to a specific production project or if there's anything visual that you want to share with us, and just kind of talk through the process.
Awesome. Away. I'll do 2 speed runs on 2 different projects. I think because like
All right.
one of them is video production and the other one is like animation. So that touches like both worlds that I'm in.
Okay.
So like I said earlier, Visual Jutsu is me, Riyadh, and Diane, and we're a production and animation agency. So we make like videos, graphics, anything digital in that space actually. And the approach that we have is to solve problems. We go to the client and they'll say I need this video or that video. And then we take it back and we run them through a process and we try to solve their problem with our creative skills. So an exciting project that we're working on right now in the video production side of things would be a project with Melanie Brummer, who is part of the accelerator course for Meta or Facebook, for those who don't know, like Meta. And essentially, she came to me asking if she can get she just wanted like 2 videos. Like I just need 2 videos shot, edited. And the first question I said, before I send the quotes or anything, I need to know more about you and like what you're trying to do. So she told me about her project, which is part of the Upcycling Cloth Collective, which she started, which is a Facebook group where they learn how to upcycle and use secondhand materials to create new things, right? And now what we're doing is we're creating these templates where different creatives from all over the world can send videos in of how to make these things, and we convert them into lessons for this Facebook group.
Oh, nice.
But what she's trying to do is, at the core of it, she's actually trying to make this whole group monetizable. So she doesn't just need these 2 videos. She needs a structure where she can like plot videos in really quickly and like pump out the content for her audience. She needs content around the world of upcycling so that new people who don't understand what upcycling is can understand what the world is, and so that she can autonomously answer a lot of questions that people have without having to like individually DM every single person, you know? So after having these types of conversations, we just started realizing like there's a lot more that we can do, and there's a lot more power in the content that we're creating. So now we do days where we shoot, we do interviews, we shoot reels and like content. We make the actual videos that she wants to shoot. We give her the whole peripheral package so that at the end of this, she doesn't just have the courses that she wants to push out. She has all the marketing material that she needs to get it out there. She has all the photography and archival stuff that she needs, so that she has all the raw materials, which we don't normally do, but we set it up in a way that she has all her raw materials so she can also create stuff later or use it in a documentary or something, or she can send it to Meta for their own stuff. All the graphics that she's had created are integrated into all those things. So now like she has a whole look and feel for the brand, which was done by, I think, her friend Jamie. And then we take all those things and like integrate it into our content. And we basically just look for holes that she's not even aware of because it's not her industry. And we fill those holes so that at the end, because when she says, I want 2 videos, what she's actually saying is, I need to get this project out. So we need to see what else does she need that she might not be aware of to get this project out. Because at the end, when she pays her full fee, if this project doesn't go out the way she envisioned and it doesn't perform the way she envisioned, then the first person she turns around to is me. And if I'm like,
yeah,
oh, but
yeah.
I gave you the videos, I gave you the 2 videos, like, then it's,
Mm.
it becomes like a he said, she said. It's an argument. At the end of the day, she walks away saying that we're not that good. So at the end of the day, like, what you really want to focus on is like solving your client's problem and making sure that they feel. My personal philosophy is making sure that they feel like we want their business or their venture to succeed just as much as they do. Because I mean, if she succeeds and everything goes well, then she can like get more funding, she can do more projects, we can keep shooting. Like, the nature of our business means that if our clients grow, we grow as well. So, and I think that applies for any sort of like service provider.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that project's really cool. We've already started like editing and putting stuff together, and like we shot in the middle of Joburg, at Sun Goddess, which is an amazing like upcycling and fashion brand. They're really cool because they preserve all the different South African cultures in the clothing and like basically make modern clothes, not just with the colors, but like with the patterns, designs for the like different practical uses, like going to weddings and funerals and all those things, and fitting those parameters. They're really cool. We've been traveling, just traveling around Joburg. We're doing another shoot in like 2 weeks for the same project in Cape Town. We'll be in Durban in July. So just all over South Africa, really like capturing the fashion and specifically the upcycling narrative in our country, and then bringing it all back to educational content that people can then use to enter the space and like become a part of that world. So I think that
what a
that's
nice
really
project.
cool. Yeah, that's a really, really fun project. And then the second project is more of a personal project, but since sharing the script, like, everyone has been really keen to help. So it's becoming a company project very fast. And that is a pilot episode for a show that I wrote.
Wow,
Yeah, so that's something I wrote like,
that's
I think
crazy.
I wrote the first draft like a year ago, and my friends and I have just been like slowly tweaking it. And I actually wrote it as a piece that I wanted to do when I was like 40 and rich in live action with a whole ton of money, and like do special effects and do like something like Star Wars level. And then I realized, like, we could probably do it to the same quality, but in animation and CGI. And we could do that like now.
That's crazy.
So instead of
Unreal Engine
waiting,
is wild.
so instead of waiting for a client to give us millions of rands to like make an animation, we've decided to make this pilot and to make it to industry quality as well. Just to show like what we can do and like how we've leveled up over the past few years. And then also just like as a fun creative project that's not for a client, but we still get to work together as a team and have fun. And that's really cool because so the story is about a young pod racer. So she races in like a sport similar to Formula One, but in the future, like more futuristic. And she's trying to enter this international tournament. And the reason she wants to do this is so that she can leave South Africa. Like, she's been trying to leave South Africa for the longest time. And she's been trying to save up through school, and now she's just graduated. She has no prospects of a job in this country. She's really good at racing, which is the only way that she saved up. And now she really wants to leave to like a first world country. And the only way to do that is to like enter this tournament. So the first episode deals with like meeting the characters, creating this world and understanding, reimagining really what Joburg looks like 50 years in the future. And then and then starting this journey with these characters as they go through this tournament. And what I wanted to do was sort of reflect my own journey. Like, I think as a kid, I wanted to leave South Africa a lot. And now that I've set up the opportunity to like start leaving, and I'm picking like what country to move to and stuff like that, I'm actually like, oh my God, but I like love South Africa, man. So I wanted to mirror that in the show. And so her goal in the beginning is just to leave South Africa and like be done with this place. And through competing in this tournament and having her whole community stand behind her and realizing that her community is behind
representing
her,
the country.
Yeah, she starts to realize like why South Africa is great, and falls in love with
very
it.
Very relatable storyline.
Yeah.
That sounds like Stephanie's life.
Just not racing.
yeah. Just not the
way
racing
too much
part.
adrenaline.
Yeah, the adrenaline just to like, give it some energy, some pace.
Keep it interesting.
It's also always been
show off the VFX a little.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a Formula One racer. So I was like, if I'm not gonna do it, I'm gonna animate it for sure.
I love it.
And I realized like she could do anything as like a catalyst to make money to leave. So why don't we put something that's like fun and adrenaline rushed? And I think I'm trying to create a nice balance so that like if you're into adrenaline, you can watch it and fall in love with the story. But if you're into like more like slow drama type stuff, then you can also like understand why a little action is cool, like bring those two worlds together.
All right.
And we're making that entirely in free software, which is also really fun. I go on Twitch Monday to Thursdays from 8 until midnight or 8 until 11. Unless there's load shedding, then the time might switch a bit. And I'm documenting this entire process. So on paper,
that's incredible.
So on paper, anyone could do this because, like, literally everything we're using is free except for After Effects. But then I'm going to be making episodes where we do the same thing again in the free version of DaVinci Resolve. So, like, there's literally you're literally going to be able to see like how everything is made. And I thought that would be really cool as well. I love that. Because I've been trying to learn about the whole like pipeline of making bigger animations and bigger series, and everything is very like closed. It's very hard to find that information. And then when you do find that information, you've paid like 10,000 Rand to learn that you need to spend 15,000 Rand on software, so
something else.
So I really love Blender because I found a lot of creators starting to create movies in that space, and I thought we can definitely make a series or something like that entirely in free software.
Sure.
Amazing. Fish, that's crazy, and I really can't wait to see it. We were hoping to actually see something, so maybe what we'll do to end this episode is just play a show reel so that the people can see a little bit of the work that you've actually done. But maybe before we wrap things up, can you let everybody know where they can find you? You mentioned a little bit about your Twitch channel. Where could they follow you, and where would be the best place to follow you?
I didn't even notice it get dark. Let me just move my camera here. All right. So on social media, you can find me in Fishcat We Trust on Instagram with like full stops instead of spaces or anything like that. On YouTube, Fishcat Zombie. On any platform, really, you can just search Fishcat Zombie, and I'm probably there showing my project in one form or another.
Result.
Like I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, like all of that, just as like Fishcat Zombie. But I think the best place is probably Instagram, Twitch, or YouTube. Yeah.
Nice. And we'll put those links in the show notes and in the post as well, so you guys can just find it.
Amazing.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time, Fish.
Thank
been a
you
good
guys
one.
so much. I love like talking
Been a
about all this
pleasure.
stuff. So yeah, this is really great. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Amazing. Hopefully we can have you back on the show. But to
Yes,
everybody
for
listening,
sure.
thank you so much for your time. If it's morning, have a good day. If it's evening, get some rest. And we will see you again soon.
See you soon.